Hello, this is Rachel from 7 in All, and I am here today with a special guest, my mom, veteran homeschooler of many children, here to talk about using discussion as a learning tool. Discussion or dialogue is an incredibly powerful learning tool. I talk about this in the curriculum that I recently released. The Curious Kinder is a literature-based curriculum that heavily integrates discussion as a learning tool. Not just reading a book and then closing it, but reading a book and then talking about the book with your child, talking about practical ideas, not just kind of assuming, I'm guessing my kid gets the point, but verbally processing important ideas with them. Now, my mom's here to address some troubleshooting with using discussion in your homeschool, because you might try it and it might be new and it might not work.
Right. So we hear a lot about dialogue and discussion and what a wonderful learning tool it is, especially for addressing heart conditions or for addressing value system. And so we want to use this wonderful tool in our homeschool, and we sit down to have this wonderful educational dialogue, and the first question that comes out is met with, I don't know, can I have a snack? And it's just...
Or totally off topic.
Yeah. Billy took my pencil. And so are we wrong? Is dialogue really capable of achieving what we say, what is said by educators, what it's able to achieve? And the answer is yes. Dialogue is an extremely powerful teaching tool, but just like many things, it can go very badly. So how do we build in our homeschools a culture of dialogue? And one, we the teacher have to appreciate why it works and how it works. So I want to get a little bit into the behind the scenes of why discussion, why dialogue, and then we'll get into a little bit more of the how. So first let me address a little bit of the why. Many people are oral processors. So what that means is they have thoughts in their brain, but the thoughts don't really gel and formulate into a conclusion until they say it. Now, I will say personally, my brain does not work that way. My brain needs everybody be quiet. Let me go to my happy place, which is somewhere away from you all, and I will think quietly, no talking to myself, and stew on something, and then I'll get it, and then I'm ready to go. And I don't want anyone to interrupt that process. No conversation. That is not most people. So if you are that way, you have to recognize your children probably aren't. Now I'm going to describe the situation of most people. Most children are oral processors, whereas their deep little thoughts are not getting to the surface. They're not coming to conclusions. They're not formulating that full understanding because it's too fragmented. So what they have to do is go through the process of, let me boil that down, and can I get it out into a complete sentence that actually makes sense? And in doing that, that cements the information in their brain. So we're trying to get through the process of oral processing. Another key thing that happens is we get inspired not only by our own thoughts, but by the thoughts of others. But I won't know what the thoughts of others are unless I'm entering into conversation and dialogue. So as a teacher, I want to say value discussion, value dialogue, value the thinking process and getting thoughts to go through what words do I need and to get them to say it.
And especially, when would you see discussion being most useful in a lesson?
Okay, usually when I'm not talking math, that's my favorite subject, there's not a lot of discussions like do this, do this is why. And do you get it? Okay, let's move on. But in where we're reading a book, where we're studying something, an event in history, where, definitely Bible, any kind of theology. So things that require deeper thought.
And this is at the end of a lesson. This is typically after teaching. We're not going to start by discussing, typically, especially not with younger learners.
So you need to have informed discussions.
You need to have informed discussions. So this is after a lesson, at the end of a reading. Then we're discussing to help process all these ideas that have been communicated, not just communicate the ideas and then do nothing with it.
And we're trying to move a little, we're going to start with facts. So we need to have a shared understanding of, did everybody get the facts that were shared? So the beginning of a discussion is usually to get a shared understanding. What happened? We might get a few details. I don't like many details. I don't like what color shirt were they wearing?
What was the day?
What was the
How
date?
many people?
Usually that doesn't matter. So you're trying to get this shared understanding of what happened, what were the key motivations that went into what happened, and maybe what are the external events that maybe impacted what was going on. So you want to get a shared understanding, and then you want to move into, and how did you feel about that? Were you shocked? Maybe it made you sad, maybe it made you angry, but you're just trying to explore. You're trying to slow down conclusion making and introduce exploration. So it's stop it with that was bad, that was good. We don't want to reach conclusion too fast. You want to open exploration, and you want to pause. It's not that you don't get to decision making. It's make sure, one, you know what's going on, so facts. You are exploring different aspects and different perspectives, from this person's perspective, from this other character's perspective. People think differently, and why do they think differently? Then moving on towards sometimes a conclusion can be drawn. Sometimes we're not after a conclusion per se, as a basic understanding. Yeah. Okay, so that's the dream. How do we get there? One, you have to build a culture. In your homeschool, you have to build a culture for a shared value system for dialogue. So when they talk about something they've read, be very interested. Oh, yeah. You want to give positive reinforcement for them sharing their thoughts, sharing that confused them, that excited them, that angered them, or
make it seem like a normal thing, a habit. Make this kind of a family habit. At dinner times, you, your husband, you're sharing about what you've read and what you've learned, and your kids can pick up on that too, and they start sharing about, hey, I learned about this, I learned about that.
And that discussion is not only teacher as a student question, but it's what questions did you have when you were reading that? What did it make you think about besides what the book was about? It usually makes a connection. Oh, that was like that in this other book, or making connections to other things. So you're building a discussion culture, but cultures go both ways. So you can have a positive culture towards discussion, or you can get this. I don't know.
Why are you wasting my time?
I've got other stuff to do. Can this be over?
A culture that's just trying to rush through, check it off the list, and not really engage.
So one thing that can help is set some expectations. There is going to be a discussion at the end.
You're not done.
We're not done as soon as we're done reading. Also, early on, you might want to read, if you know you have these 4 questions, I'm going to read those questions first before I start reading, or just to let you know so you can start the thinking process. Then afterwards, read the whole set of questions again, but then be quiet. I'm just going to give you some thinking time so that some people are ready to talk like this. Some people actually take a while, so it's okay, I'm going to give you some thinking time, but we're going to come back to the discussion. So what would help with with the dialogue, when a student comes back with a response like, I don't know, one, don't accept that as an answer. So when someone says, I don't know, we come back with, what would help you to know? Do you need me to reread the passage? Do you need to look something up in a dictionary? What would help you know? And then do not let them get away with it. It's like, you're going to answer the question. It might take a while, and we might have to supply some more information. Maybe we have to read something over again. But if you let them get away with, I don't know, pretty soon that's the answer you get to every question, is because they know it's an easy out. I'll just say, I don't know, and the teacher has to move on. Like, this teacher will never move on. We have to read the whole chapter again. We have to look up stuff in some encyclopedia, but we are going to know, and we are going to answer questions. Also, how do we respond if they give a wrong answer? I like to move towards, and when they're young, maybe you just have to tell them, no. But as you get older, you want to have them start self-correcting their thoughts. So you say, what evidence do you have to support your thought? And, I just think so.
No. Evidence. Thoughts should be based on evidence. This can be a surprisingly hard concept for seemingly a lot of the human population to learn.
So making them go back and think, if we're saying, that character was very greedy, and you're like, okay, what evidence do you have to say that he was greedy? And then they might get I don't know. Okay, what do we have to do for you to know? Do we need to read that again? Do we need to go looking for evidence? But usually they actually do know, they did such and such and such a thing, and that made me think they were greedy. And when they gave away all their toys, that made you think they were greedy? And they go, wait, if they gave away all their toys, that meant they were generous. Yeah, self-correcting is hugely important dialogue skill, where you make someone go back, what is the evidence to support your thought? And then when they look for the evidence, actually they can find it's contradicting evidence, and then they have to change their own thought. And you, as a teacher, didn't say, that person is actually generous. You've got the motivation totally wrong. As they go back and look for the evidence, they will figure out that they got the question wrong, and being able to self-correct your own thinking is a huge part of discussion and dialogue, and to be able to change your conclusions right in the time. Like, as I'm having the conversation, I can go like, yeah, that doesn't make sense, and then correct, and then keep going.
Yes. So can you talk a little bit about what would you expect this to look like with a 5-year-old? What would you expect this to look like with an 8, 9-year-old, or a 13-year-old?
Okay, so with a 5-year-old, we're trying to get to the basics of, can you talk back about what happened?
Like the basic flow of conversation,
right?
Like answering a question, asking a question, answering a question. Can you formulate a question about this? Can you stay on topic? It's really still learning the structure of it all. And that's what you're doing in Curious Kinder. You're setting the foundation of wondering about this, and kind of the idea of what's worth paying attention to as I'm reading, because we're still learning these habits of attention.
And that's where I would be very cautious not to ask a lot of questions about what color shirt was
like random details.
Right.
That's not
how
the point.
many steps did he take to get into the house? Because they said he walked up 7 steps. Okay. Usually has nothing to do with the main point. So make sure your questions are really
Big picture,
exploring the story.
What's the story really about? Don't answer about random stuff, because actually kids can be surprisingly good at talking about random stuff that they noticed in a story that isn't the main idea. And one of the good things that discussion builds are summary skills. So we want to be heading in the direction of summary skills with, what are the big picture ideas of this?
Yeah, because I have many times experienced somebody being able to say, he walked down Main Street, but they don't know why he was going down Main Street or where he was going. And
They just remember the name of the street.
name, Main Street. And it's like, oh, okay, that's not what you're listening for, but okay, you do know Main Street, but that's...
And these will be relatively short. Maybe this is you read a book and you just talk about for, 3 minutes, 5 minutes maybe if it's very interesting after a book. These are very short at this level. Then, you get more into mid-elementary.
And then you start doing what I call application of information, where maybe something good happened in the book and you say, oh, how did so-and-so become a ballerina? And they're able to say, oh, they practiced a lot and they did this, they did, or why did so-and-so have trouble with his friend? It's like, wow, he stole his crayon and he did these other bad things. And so they're able to apply what they know about life to why did certain things happen in a story.
So the conversations are gradually getting a little longer and more about motivations, reasons why, value systems that different characters are portraying. They are leveling up in complexity. The same way your child's math curriculum is leveling up, we should be expecting them to engage at a more complex level in discussing. Now again, it does not need to be a whole long session. Then as you get into middle school, that's where you sometimes can end up with very long discussions, especially when you're on very complex topics or really, really important topics. I remember some of our discussions, like in Bible time classes, being half an hour or an hour long, just the family sitting and back and forth and all this. Our Bible time classes were very long when I was in high school. And because Mom said this is going to be our most valuable time, when we would get impatient, my mom literally would say, this is the most valuable time we're going to spend on school all day, to discuss this, to get to the heart of these ideas and to really understand them. So the time does get longer, especially as they're older and especially on the more important and more complex ideas.
And complex thinking is very important to develop. So not having this either it's one way or the other way, or in this circumstance maybe you would reach this conclusion, and in a totally different circumstance you might reach a different conclusion. So being able to apply nuanced thinking. And life is not as simple as sometimes our early storybooks make it out. As you know,
good things happen to good kids and bad things happen to bad kids.
Yeah, or like, can we really moralize from history? Like, is Thomas Jefferson really a hero, or
are people complex? People are complex.
And am I complex?
Yes.
And are there things that I do well, and are there things where I'm very immature? And then what can I do about that? And then how do I take ownership of my own complex personality, and maybe one area I am mature and then one area I'm freakishly immature. Like this idea that I need to approach life carefully, with curiosity, with assessment, and sometimes assessments turn out bad, but then life is not over because we're on a growing journey, and that I don't have to be overwhelmed by that or imprisoned by it. I'm not imprisoned by the fact I looked at myself and what I saw was ugly. I could be like, looks like some growing needs to happen in these areas, and I can discuss that in my family, and they can, with intelligence and with articulation and with a heart motivation to support, we can have these kind of discussions at serious levels with our teenagers, and
without it just being shut down of we shouldn't criticize anybody or anything like that. So yes, we want to be learning about the books, but book learning isn't very useful if it stays in the books. Through discussion, that gives us a tool to take it out into life and really wrestle with big ideas and see those big ideas in our own day-to-day choices and situations that we get brought into. So we're here encouraging you to use discussion in your homeschool, to start young, And don't be dismayed if the first time it feels awkward or it doesn't go very well. Like nothing goes well at the beginning. It is a skill to be learned, just like any skill.
Yeah, and it's a skill for a teacher to facilitate a discussion. When do you let little arguments go between students, and when do you have to bring in some peace? Okay,
You're getting off topic.
Off topic, and we're starting to tear people down instead of build them up, which is not our goal. Like, our goal is to keep the goals of the conversation. Our goals are to learn, to explore, to mature, to grow, to build a knowledge base. And this takes skill as a teacher, but it also, as students start interacting with each other, that takes a skill. And sometimes I'll just say, put a lid. You got to put a lid on it because it's getting too hot in here. But sometimes you just need to let it go. Like, I think we're getting somewhere. It's uncomfortable for everywhere, but I think we are getting somewhere. So we're just going to let this conversation go and see, does it get us to where we need to be in questioning sometimes our own rightness, because we're not actually exploring deep enough into issues. And we want to build that skill set and that comfortableness of let's have difficult conversations because they're worthwhile.
I hope that we are able to get you thinking about how to use discussion and even getting to the point of having difficult conversations be a part of your homeschool toolbox. And I hope that we got you thinking about how with any tool, it's really important to know how to use that tool. We don't just take out a hammer and start swinging it around. We need to know how to use it. So use this as a tool, seek to use it skillfully, and build your child's skill with discussion as they grow through the years. If you have any questions or anything to add to this conversation, definitely leave those comments down below this video. I love to chat with you guys in the comments, and we can discuss this even more. I'll see you next time in the next Nerdy Homeschool video. Bye!
Bye!